Community Radio.
Hello. Now you hear me. Hello, good afternoon. Magandang hapon sa inyong lahat, and thank you very much for joining us to today's special Pride event, the BUZZ Baklaan at Uzapang Zafe Zpaces, a panel discussion on enhancing queer safe spaces in the Philippines. Happy Pride to all of us. This event is organized jointly by the Embassy of the Federal Republic of Germany and the queer rave collective Elephant. Before we start, let me say that I had the pleasure this weekend to take part in this year's Pride March last Saturday in Quezon City, and it was impressive to see the high number of people in all their diversity standing up for LGBTQIA+ rights here in the Philippines. Congratulations to that. This year's Pride comes at a crucial time, not only for the Philippines, but also for Germany's foreign policy. Not only is our ambassador the current EU gender champion here in the Philippines, but we also have just in March published our guidelines, the Federal Foreign Office's guidelines on shaping feminist foreign policy. When it comes to Germany's feminist foreign policy, it is important to note that it does not only target women, but all marginalized groups. Intersectionality and inclusion are of highest importance in this regard. In guideline number 6, it is stated that we promote equitable representation and participation by women and marginalized people in society. We advocate for better visibility of marginalized people in art and culture, research and science, education and media. We offer protection to vulnerable groups. We hope that today's event will put a spotlight on queer people in the cultural sector and will give us the opportunity to discuss how to enhance queer safe spaces in the Philippines and everywhere, actually. The underground culture within the queer community has been a way for individuals to create alternative spaces when mainstream society was unwelcoming or hostile. It has served as a source of resilience, creativity, and empowerment, contributing to the broader LGBTQ rights movement and the gradual shift towards greater acceptance and visibility in society. In Germany, nightclubs, especially those catering to queer communities, are important cultural institutions. Clubs in Berlin have been valued as a place for queer people, in particular, to be themselves without their identities being judged by mainstream society. In the Philippines, there has been a growing recognition of the importance of creating safe spaces for the LGBTQIA+ community in recent years. While slow progress has been made in terms of recognition and acceptance, many challenges still persist. Discrimination, stigma, and limited access to safe and inclusive environments remain significant barriers to the well-being and empowerment of queer Filipinos. By bringing together a diverse range of experts, activists, and community members, this panel discussion will explore strategies, challenges, and opportunities to strengthen queer safe spaces across the country. Ladies and gentlemen, since September 2022, Germany has been co-chairing the Equal Rights Coalition, a group of 42 states and 30 non-governmental organizations for the promotion and protection of LGBT rights. With this, Germany steps up its engagement for LGBT issues. Thus, today's discussion, as well as our support to last Saturday's Elephant Party, I don't know, some people were there, hopefully, our way to fill our role as co-chair with life. With this, let me also acknowledge the presence of the Honorable Mayor of Quezon City, Joy Belmonte. And I would like to ask you to take the stage and say a few words. Thank you very much.
Sorry. Sorry. There you go. I'll just put this here. Thank you, Alex. Good afternoon, Ambassador Anke, and to all of our guests and our panelists. I promise this is just 5 minutes. I timed it. Inclusivity is among the Quezon City government's fundamental core values, and it has been our objective to ensure this is reflected in both our city's policies and programs. In local governments, policies are institutionalized and operationalized through ordinances and their respective implementing rules and regulations. Our inclusivity policy, as this relates to the LGBTQIA+ sector, is embodied in our Gender Fair Ordinance of 2014, one of the very first of its kind in the country. While 43 cities have reportedly already passed similar measures, only 3 have crafted IRRs. Without these, legislation remains ineffective and fails to achieve the purpose for which it was enacted. Without legislation that ensures that the government is committed to combating discrimination, prejudice, harassment, and abuse, and is aggressively promoting gender equality, access to safe spaces by the LGBTQIA+ community in mainstream society cannot be guaranteed. Safe spaces are important because they are venues where individuals are empowered to freely express their true selves without fear of judgment. In them, members of the community can celebrate their authentic selves and establish support networks. Quezon City's Gender Fair Ordinance of 2014 is an anti-discrimination measure that safeguards the rights of LGBTQIA+ members and ensures equal access to employment, housing, healthcare, education, and other social services. It also criminalizes hate crimes against members of the community. Our hotline 122 addresses all emergencies it receives, including those from LGBTQIA+ individuals who call because they are at risk or have been physically harassed, assaulted, or abused. Likewise, the city has an ordinance establishing a protection center for victims of gender-based violence and abuse that provides LGBTQIA+ individuals with avenues to access justice in addition to legal and medical services, as well as psychosocial and spiritual counseling. Our Gender Fair Ordinance provides for the creation of a policy-making body called a Pride Council, whose membership includes LGBTQIA+ civil society organizations that are elected by the sector through its representatives. The Pride Council meets quarterly to assess current issues and make plans and programs moving forward. When the ordinance was passed, we focused on organizing LGBTQIA+ organizations in every barangay. When our Quezon City People's Council was created to make sure government engages with civil society in the conceptualization of policies, programs, and action plans, the LGBTQIA+ sector was one of the 24 sectors included. And there are now 4,000 organizations registered with the Quezon City government who are part of the Quezon City People's Council. This ensures the presence of the LGBTQI+ sector ensures that the queer community plays an active role in the city's affairs. Among the provisions of the city's ordinance is to educate and raise awareness among the general public about LGBTQIA+ issues in order to foster a better understanding of the community, combat gender stereotyping, and promote acceptance. Our Gender and Development Office, headed here by Janet, and she's here, has been conducting these gender sensitivity trainings since the ordinance was passed. And we train local governments, national governments, and the private sector. Moreover, our annual Quezon City International Film Festival, which has a Rainbow QC collection, plays a big role in educating the public and validating the identities of queer individuals. Celeste Lapida here is one of our Q Cinema babies. Yeah. Correct? Her film was premiered in Q Cinema. Moreover, the city recognizes that the creation of safe spaces begins at the grassroots level, and early into the implementation of the ordinance, we worked with the NGO Outright International to transform barangays into safe spaces for the LGBTQI+ sector through specialized training for barangay staff. So what happens is we stick a rainbow on the barangay hall's door, and if you see that, you know that you are entering a safe space because that barangay has been trained to look after your needs and to understand your situation. So after the barangay elections, unfortunately we're having elections, we will again be re-implementing this program and training again the newly elected barangay officials. In Quezon City, data indicates that 97% of HIV cases are MSMs, and in order to address their healthcare needs as well as at-risk individuals, we were the first city to establish a sundown clinic, a safe space that is open during unconventional hours to provide medical services, peer-to-peer counseling, and a strong support system for our target population. The city operates 3 sundown clinics, with another one in Eastwood City opening later this year. At present, we are focusing on strengthening inclusivity in the workplace. Since our ordinance already provides for this, we shall be working with our business permits and licensing department, and hopefully with various organizations like the Chamber of Commerce, hopefully, and the PFIP, sana, you work with us, kasi I've spoken to Chris already and Ron, to ensure that business establishments registered in Quezon City will have clear and implementable non-discrimination or inclusivity policies. The city's commitment to the advocacy of gender equality is encapsulated in its 5-year strategic action plan, which was developed recently together with members of the community. The plan contains 6 pillars that can be summarized in the acronym GPRIDE: governance, participation, redress, inclusivity, diversity, and empowerment. Each of these pillars is essential towards ensuring that our entire city eventually becomes a safe space for the community. We understand that queer underground cultural movements grew out of the necessity for empowering spaces where LGBTQIA+ artists can express themselves through platforms that celebrate their identities and experiences. However, we hope that through the steps local governments like Quezon City are taking to expand safe spaces and amplify the voices of the community, these underground movements can emerge from the realm of the invisible or from under the radar and become part of activism for change by reaching broader audiences and using art and talent to ultimately pave the way for mainstream society to open up safe spaces for all. Underground cultural movements can and should permeate mainstream culture, and with the support and protection of the government, they can expand the reach of their messages and become catalysts for social progress. Quezon City has already begun working with queer artists to perform on mainstream platforms, such as in Maginhawa. Those of you who are familiar with Quezon City, Maginhawa, we do shows there every so often with the queer community. So they are able to modify, through these shows, people are able to modify their misconceptions about the LGBTQIA+, because these are mainstream spaces where we work together with you. We look forward to more of these engagements in the pursuit of our collective objectives. So again, I would like to reiterate my invitation to the queer community, especially the art and culture movement. Work with Quezon City. We will protect you. We will work for you. We will give you the spaces that you need. Yeah.
Thank you very much, Mayor Joy. And with this, I would like to transfer you to our host today, to our moderator, SuperStarlet XXX. Thank you for the moderation.
Hello. Thank you, Alex. Thank you, Mayor Joy. Hello, good afternoon, diplomatic community. Yes, thank you so much for joining us this afternoon. Welcome to the BUZZ Baklaan at Uzapang Zafe Zpaces, a panel discussion on how we can enhance our safe spaces. Okay, so I would like to introduce myself. My name is SuperStarlet XXX. I am the co-founder of Elephant, which is a queer techno dance party here in Manila. I'm a Leo. That's why I love being the center of attention. My rising is Scorpio. That's why I'm hot and sexy. My Venus is in Gemini. That's why I don't have a love life. And I'm also an oversharer. When we started Elephant half a decade ago, our musical direction as a party was greatly influenced and shaped by a German friend who we met a few years earlier. He's right here, David Sorrenti. Say hi. So that's David. So he introduced to us techno, and we fell in love with it. And from that moment on, we started researching about Berlin parties and the relationship and the support, the long history that Germany has with the LGBTQIA plus community. We've been so inspired by the so many safe spaces that we see in Berlin. And that's what we are going to talk about this afternoon. Safe spaces. Why are these spaces important for us? Why do we thrive in these spaces? How do we keep these spaces alive? Okay, so is everyone excited to meet our panelists this afternoon? Yes, thank you so much. So I'd like to introduce the first one. Ketia is a Berlin-based queer DJ and activist. They have founded and co-organized KitKat, a trans music collective in Berlin and Lisbon, which prioritizes the safety and inclusion of women and non-binary people in the nightlife scene. Am I right? They are also behind the DJ collective and label Captcha, which gathers funds for Casa T, a local shelter for trans people in Lisbon. Ladies and gentlemen, meet Ketia. Ketia actually DJ'd for us last weekend at Elephant during our Pride party. Ketia, how was your experience? What was it like?
Hi. Oh. Hi. Hi everyone. Thank you for having me. It was great. I had 4 gigs this weekend in different cities around China. So when I arrived after 13 hours of travel and only 2 hours of sleep, I was a bit exhausted and kind of crying in the taxi on the way to Elephant, and not really sure how I was gonna do it. But as soon as I walked in, like the energy was very sweet and tender and like innocent and just queer joy. So very quickly I felt fine, and then it was just really fun. People were just really sweet and really engaging. So yeah.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you. Our next panelist is a gay indigenous Muslim filmmaker and human rights activist working mostly in Mindanao. He is working with the NGO Mujer LGBT, aiming to provide safe spaces and support for queer Mindanaoans. As part of his work, he has assisted in the organization of the first Pride in Mindanao, as well as diversity-themed film festivals around the country. He has been featured in UN's Diversity in Adversity campaign, highlighting the threats he has received on accounts of his work on LGBTQIA issues in Mindanao. Please welcome Rhadem Musawah. Assalamualaikum.
Alaikum salam. Yeah. Hi everyone. Thank you for coming.
Yeah, I have a question for you. You visited a total of 63 countries, am I right?
Yes.
Which one's your favorite?
Parang piling ko papatayin ako ni Lance nito. I think this is very close to my heart. My favorite country and my favorite city is Stockholm. Simply because of ABBA, Robin, Swedish House Mafia, Avicii. I mean, can you blame me? So these are my coming out singers that really paved the way for me to be free and to be able to do what I do now.
Thank you so much. And our third finalist, she is a trans filmmaker, performance artist, and a mainstay in the Manila queer nightlife scene. She is a member of the LGBTQ collective Elephant. Her current project, Taking My Time to Dance, aims to the big screen a reimagining of queerness, identity, drag, and the dance culture. She is also a queer business owner, founding Estes, an ice cream business with her partner Andy. Please welcome Celeste Lapida.
Hi. Happy Pride.
Happy Pride, Celeste. Am I right? Your pronouns are she, her, they?
Yes.
And where is Andy right now?
Andy's right there.
Hi, Andy. Andy, may we know what your pronouns are? We love you for that. Thank you so much, Andy. And of course, di ko ito palalagpasin ang moment na to na ma-introduce ko siya. She has been consistently proving herself as a genuine ally to the community by continuing to support the community with her many projects. Mayor Joy, I'm so proud to say that I'm also from Quezon City. Mayor Joy Belmonte.
Hi, I'm so happy you're from Quezon City. Maybe we should get together and plan some.
We
interesting
should,
things.
we should. Mayor Joy, congratulations on the recently concluded Pride Party, the second time, right? This year? Since last year and then this year.
Yeah, we had last year, actually before the pandemic also, and then this year. But this is, the congratulations should go to the community because we were just the venue. We were just the host, really. Kayo lahat yun.
Thank you so much. Okay, so let's begin our discussion. First question, let's identify our safe spaces. Okay, Mayor Joy, in Quezon City, we have the Safe Spaces Act, right? Which
No, that's a national government
oh,
act.
okay. I'm
Yeah.
sorry. I kindly educate me.
Yes, if I'm not mistaken, that's a national government legislation, and it really doesn't pertain to the the LGBTQIA plus community. It has to do more with women. And it's actually now been part of the amendment of the Gender and Development Code, but that's for women. So it doesn't really address the needs of the community, the LGBTQIA plus community. It's about harassment of women, abuse of women. Yeah.
I
It's
got my
more-
research wrong.
and
I'm
that's
so
why-
sorry.
No, pero tama naman. In the sense na yung salita, bawal magastos mambastos sa Quezon City. Yeah, that was because we were also the first city to pass the Safe Spaces ordinance as part of our Gender and Development Code. So, but although it was really meant for the women, the women's sector. Yeah.
Thank you. Kasi all women nga naman are equal, di ba? Trans women are women. So nakikinabang
Yes,
yan,
correct.
lahat tayo pantay-pantay na rin sa law na to. Recently, may in-announce ka the Right to Care card. Can we talk about that briefly?
So the Right to Care card is it's our answer to the problems that I have perennially heard from the sector, wherein couples who have been in loving relationships for a very long time cannot make decisions or medical or healthcare decisions for one another simply because ang hinahanap sa hospital ay yung legal spouse or yung next of kin. And I have a friend who actually mentioned to me that when his partner got appendicitis, and they were looking for the mother of the partner, and the mother lives in the province, and he said, I'm the partner. I would like to be able to make decisions. They did not allow him to make any decisions. So the partner is there suffering in pain, and they just told her, him as well. Can you make the decision? And he couldn't think straight, but then sabi nung health professional, hindi talaga pwede yung partner mo, yung kasama mo. Ikaw na lang kung wala yung nanay mo or next of kin. So when we heard that, we worked with this group of Adrian, yung Molenlow Trena. They're a commercial. I think they're an advertising company actually of all queer members, and they worked with us on this. And at first I thought it was not legal to do that. But then I subjected the proposal to a battery of our lawyers of the city legal department, and they said it's completely fine because we are using a special power of attorney. And really that just means that you're giving authority to an individual to make healthcare decisions for you. So it's kind of like a runaround to the law in a sense. We're finding a loophole, tama ba? Pero kasi dahil wala tayong ganong klaseng pagkakataon, kailangan talaga maging creative tayo. So this is completely legal and completely, in fact, through this special power of attorney, actually all hospitals nga in the Philippines pwede yan kasi national laws yung batayan nito eh. Pero syempre yung jurisdiction ko lang is Quezon City. And so the right to health card will be granted to at least sana may isa sa mga couples na taga Quezon City, sa partners taga Quezon City. Just cause, syempre, kami yung nagtrabaho and this is my gift to my constituents. So at least one sa inyo taga QC, you come to our Gender and Development Office, you register, there's an application form. We will just validate that you are in a loving relationship with one another. And then automatically there is a special power of attorney that you're going to fill up, and that will be notarized then and there. And then we will give you a card. And then once you scan that card or the hospital scans that card, automatic lalabas yung digital version of the special power of attorney wherein you are giving permission to your partner to make healthcare decisions for you. Okay, so yun talagang walang hindi pwedeng labagin yan. Pero just to make sure that in Quezon City it is honored, we are going to be passing an ordinance to make sure that our hospitals in Quezon City honor this right to care card. No? So habang wala pa yung ordinance, yung 3 hospitals namin, yung Quezon City General Hospital, yung local hospitals namin, the Rosario Maclang Hospital, if you're from Quezon City would know that, and the Novaliches District Hospital, they will already honor the right to care card because we are going to be starting to accept applications already since I've made the announcement, and the guidelines have been made. But the ordinance is being drafted, and hopefully when the City Council passes that, then we can encourage, in fact, mandate all the hospitals and healthcare facilities in Quezon City to honor the right to care card for couples.
Amazing. Kaya ayoko umalis ng Quezon City. Quezon City is a safe space. I love it. So from Quezon City, now let's move on to Berlin. Hi, Ketia. Hi. So, what are safe spaces like in Berlin and how do you put it up?
So I must say that I think I have a bit of a different perspective regarding safe spaces, and this might be maybe a bit radical, and in no way is like a critique to any of the things that are being said here. But to me, a safe space can't be enhanced. When it is a safe space, it has reached its potential. And so usually in Berlin conversations, we speak about safer spaces, and safe space to whom? To who is it safe for? Because I'm sure Elephant is a very much safer party than most parties that people go to in the Philippines, but I'm not sure if, I don't know, autistic black person in a wheelchair could have felt safe there because it was loud, because it was confusing, it was wet on the floor. And so for me, a safe space means to everyone. And I don't think it's even possible. I think it's a goal that we work for in the direction of, it's a potential, it's a utopia that is very useful to like get power and motivation to walk towards it. But I'm not even sure if it's reachable because under capitalism, under laws, under English, that is a language that was used in the Catholic mission and imperial mission to come to countries like, I don't know, America, for example, and kills indigenous people and institutionalizes a language that doesn't see third gender, that is binary. When those laws are written in English, then I'm not sure how safe it can be. So I can talk about safer spaces
Alright.
very gladly. I can't say safe space because it doesn't go with my politics. But this is no critique. I can't really understand all the politics and nuances of the Philippines because I haven't been here so long. So I want to say that first. And so regarding safer spaces in Berlin, it's been very interesting because I felt like it was safer some years ago than it is now. The Berlin techno-tourism has kind of ruined it a little bit because it brings a lot of newcomers into the city that have a very different perspective on what a party should be. And I think when people invest a lot of money to go to Berghain or to go to a party, so it's not just like, I live in Berlin, so I go to a party, like I ride my bike, it's very nonchalant, I walk in, I have a good time, I see my friends, I go home. To them, it feels almost like their right to be there, in the sense it's more like entitled. So, I went to Whole Festival, which 3 years ago was so beautiful and like the closest to the safe space that I wish upon anyone. It was like queer, not too many gay men, or not predominantly gay men. I didn't have any bad interactions with anyone. Everyone was sweet. Everyone asked for consent. And then I went 3 years ago, last year, and it was filled with gay men of like higher middle class, or maybe even like high class, that feel like work in offices all year long. And then they come and they pay like maybe like 1,000 euros out of the money to like invest into coming to this place. And so for 3 days, they just get as wrecked as possible, or as careless as possible. They're mean, they're rude, they don't ask for consent. And I see this sadly happening a lot in Berlin. So yeah, my safer space prospect is not as happy as before. But there is parties, smaller parties, in places like Ketia, for example, that I'm a resident of, that focus on community and on communication and on hearing out the victims, or both sides really, not just the victims, because there's always both sides to a conflict. And yeah, I'm not so sure how much more I should say about it. But I feel like in the party scene, the idea of safer has to do with accessibility for sure. That people in wheelchairs is very common to see in the Berlin nightlife, which is quite nice. That which people should try, or parties are trying to talk at the door with the people, make them feel comfortable, which I think is one of the biggest points of contact in making safe spaces, which is at the door. Because it's like walking into someone's house, and if you're like, visiting a friend and they're like rude to you, then you already feel a bit uncomfortable coming inside, because it's like, am I going to be safe here? And so I think when I go to Berghain and the bouncers touch me without asking, sometimes feel my genitals, or ask stupid questions about if this is your first time, and I don't know, they'll just rough me up, and it almost feels like being a cow selected into like which part of the factory I have to go to, then my idea of safe is already destroyed at the door of Berghain, for example. And so there's other parties, like the parties that I do, that, you know, we welcome you, we say hello, how are you doing? If something happens, please come to us. These are the people that you can like go to. This is how you can reach us. This is what is okay to happen. If you see something, talk to us. And it's not a way of policing people, because I think there's also a weird in between, like safe space by community talking about what's happening, and also policing and telling on people. But there's a party like Radiant Love, for example, where like it's very direct. It's like 3 DJs, 4-hour sets, cute people, like no bullshit. And then you walk in, and it's just the cutest vibe possible. I've never had one bad interaction inside, and everyone that is working has visible coats, that like with like fluorescent yellow, and they all have walkie-talkies, so they can talk to each other at a distance. Anytime you need something, it's given to you. And I think this is one of the best ways to like make people like have people who are visible, so you can ask for help directly, act fast, and yeah, at the door, just be nice and be welcoming to people. So because you can't just say this is a safe space or this is a safer space. It's like there's a difference in between saying you can do something or you can feel something, and making people get to the point where they actually feel it. I can say I love you, but that doesn't mean you're gonna feel that I love you because I just met you. So I have to, like, by my actions, by the way I do things, make you feel like you are loved. And it's the same thing, I think, with parties and welcoming and having guests, because party people are guests in your own event. And what happens to them is not necessarily your responsibility, but it was a situation that you created that sometimes people get hurt inside of. And I think it's important to be responsible for that and to create as much ways of people feeling heard, protected, cared for when something happens, which always happens. I don't think there's any party where like nothing horrible or like nothing bad happens. So yeah, I think I don't want to take too much time. But yeah.
But thank you. I think we learned a lot from that. Accessibility matters to make a space safer, and of course, making people feel welcome the moment they step in. All right, thank you. Let's pass the mic to Miss Celeste. Hi, Miss Celeste. How are you?
I'm okay.
My question for you is, what is your definition of a safe space? And the follow-up question is, are nightlife spaces in Manila doing enough to provide a safe space for queer and trans people?
First of all, I'd like to agree with you. It's really hard to label a space safe. It's such a big responsibility. Ever since Elephant wasn't always calling itself a safe space. It more happened after lockdown, because we had more sensibilities and what it means to be a community or to hold venues for queer people. Last year in November, I had a discussion for Purveyor with 2 other queer artists, Zar Christoph and Zeus Bascon, where we tried to define safe space in the context of the creative industry. So may context of work, where we defined it as a safe space is where queer bodies are present and queer bodies are allowed to navigate. So there's movement, we can pass freely, we can dance, where we can communicate and other people. So from communicating our needs, kailangan there are people who will listen also. And that's very important. So those are the 2 qualities we think are the properties of a safe space, where queer bodies are allowed to navigate and negotiate. So it's a very active thing. So kahit sa barangay offices, pag may bagong officials, they have to be trained also. So it's such a very active thing to do to keep making a space safer. Um, and we also use the term coexistence over acceptance. Um, a lot of young queer Filipino people, even not even just young, think that they need to be accepted by their families or by the straight heteronormative society. Well, when it shouldn't be that way because no one owns this place. So there should be coexistence rather than acceptance. So yun yung the hard thing really is coexistence is such an active effort to do. With regards to the nightlife scene here locally, there is a consciousness to be safer. A bunch of parties lay out their house rules. They parties say that there should be no homophobia, no to transphobia, etc. But yeah, more needs to be done. So much more needs to be done. So for example, in an elephant, we say it's a safe space. Tapos may nagme-message sa atin na a couple fought in a party. So is that still the responsibility of the party? May nanakawan ng phone. Is it still a safe space na nakawan siya ng phone? So it's such a hard label and responsibility for a venue or a party.
Thank you. Thank you so much for that. I would like to pass the microphone to Rhadem. Hello.
Hey, long time.
I know. We're both Muslims, but I grew up here in Manila. You're from?
I'm from Basilan in Zamboanga City.
Girl. My question is, we know that Mindanao is predominantly Islamic place, right?
Yeah, I think 50 years ago, we are basically the majority in Mindanao. No, 100 years ago, we are predominantly dominating Mindanao. But of course,
okay.
after the independence of the Philippines, and there are certain politics against Mindanao, so we are now the minority. We're now 20%.
The Muslims are now 20%?
Yes.
In Mindanao? I didn't know that. Wait, I didn't know that. Hold on. But is it still hard living as an LGBTQIA in Mindanao?
Well, I think it's not hard for me because let's admit it, I came from a privileged household. But of course, we get a lot of research and all the stories and surveys and investigation. There are a lot of members of the LGBT, especially coming from Moro Islamic household. There are subjected to torture and grave conversion therapies. Some parents would engage their kids, but it's not a lot of them. But we only get few reports now. But I could imagine what it is in the past. Reports of parents like organizing rape for their female kid because there's a perception in Mindanao wherein what's the English for this? That if a lesbian woman would just try or will be able to try, male genitalia, she might turn straight. So there's a notion like that. And if your gay man force you into marriage, then the marriage might create a certain miracle that he would become straight right away. So these are the types of conversion therapy that usually happen in the Moro Muslim community. And of course, we have the armed conflicts regions as well. 15 years ago, I think it was just 15 or 20 years ago. Nox, I'm getting old. 20 years ago, where I wake up in the morning and we hear news that there's another building being bombed, and it seems like a normal thing. I know it's not good, but people are just going with the flow. If some of them would say that if it's their time to die, they will die in the area. But that was, of course, before the signage of the Bangsamoro Organic Law. And now, at some point, Mindanao is getting more, in a way, safer, but not safer for the LGBT as well. That's why we partnered with the German Embassy, with the Human Rights Caravan. So what we did is that we train high-ranking officials in every cities or region or municipalities on human rights with SOGI components. This is also to lay down the groundworks in preparation for SOGI equality bill. Hopefully in the near future, once it passed, because here in the Philippines, you have a national law, but sometimes the implementation on the ground, especially in Mindanao, it becomes different. It gets filtered. And we want to prepare the Soji Equality Bill for Mindanao. So we want to train local government units to be able to identify what is a human rights issue and why Soji issue is a human rights issue as well. Those are the cases because in Mindanao as well, they don't think that Soji rights is a human rights issue. That's why we also have this training as well to just bust the myth that is happening, especially in the Muslim-dominated region as well. So when it comes to safe spaces, I think during the height of armed conflict, the safe spaces that we created, because I was also, my first advocacy when I was younger, it was with peace process, because my family is involved in Office of the President on Peace Process, so we're doing the peace programs there. Usually the safe space for the gender marginalized groups that we created is the military camp. And some people would criticize us why military camp, because it is the safest area that a gender marginalized group could run into without getting hurt or subject to violence or even killed. But now we are already creating a small community centers all over Mindanao, and we have community center as well in Isabela City, in Basilan, then now we have in Zamboanga. So slowly by slowly, we are communicating and establishing the message of equality, inclusivity, human rights, and Soji rights in every LGU, so that despite the absence of the Social Equality Bill, they will be able to come up with certain policy through their gender and development offices to be able to cater with the needs of the queer people and also the member of the LGBT community as well. So yeah, it's a different narrative because they have explained amazing things that's going on when it comes to creating safe space, and also Mayor Joy, she's basically inviting us like, if you want these perks, you need to look for boyfriend or girlfriends from Quezon City. But it's a different story in Mindanao, especially in Bangsamoro region. But I think it's the hope that really keeps us going and to be able to create a better place for those who are not privileged to be safe in their own homes.
Thank you for that. Thank you. I haven't been to Mindanao in like 20 years. Sabay tayo pumunta next time. Please tour me around because really, seriously, I have relatives there who are also gay, but you know, they couldn't come out or things, we never hear from them again. It happens. So anyway, let's talk about the problems that arise when we put up our safe and safer places. Okay. Ketia, what are the usual problems that you encounter when putting up your events?
Yeah, I think I spoke a little bit about it already. I think just by making an event where people attend, there's just the possibility of conflict, of something bad happening. And you can't really stop that, I think. I think you can set the guidelines. So the way I've been doing my parties, I was part of two collectives back in Lisbon. One was Mina, that started very small, like 100 people gathering, and then it grew very quickly to like 500, and then goes up to 1,000 now. I'm not part of Mina anymore, but I worked with them for 3 years. And it was overwhelming to see how quickly it grew and how the acknowledgement of it being a cool party dragged a lot of attention from the people that we didn't want to come. So then at the door, the selection had to be really hardcore. But then you create a safer space by judging people how they look at the door. And that's also a bit complicated to manage, I think, just by looks. And so I started KitKat as a side project because also I wanted kind of maybe a more intimate party again. Yeah. And so I started throwing KitKat in this, hard to explain, not really a club, more like a house, but it's like a bar that it's not legal. It's like a cultural association, and they host members that are mostly straight on the normal days, for like swing parties, fetish parties, shibari, all kinds of events that have sexual nature. KitKat is not really like a sexual party, but more like a sexy party where it could happen, but it's not the main focus. And because it is a private club that is not legal, people can't really line up at the door. So we started doing online selection, and it's an invite-only party. And through doing invite-only, I found it very interesting what it does to people, because everyone has to go through me. No one can just show up. If you're not on the list, if you show up at the door, you'll be denied. There's no last-minute additions. And I found it hard to select online, but learn how to do it. And so basically, we only let 150 people come because the space is also small. So everyone has to talk to me. I talked to 150 people in the space of like 1 or 2 weeks in between announcing the party and the day of the event. And so the way I select is not so much by how they look, because sometimes I don't know how they look. Sometimes it's an email, sometimes it's a text message. And I just say like, this is our intentions to create a safer space. When we go to parties, usually we feel toxic masculinity, we feel objectified, we feel, like because we look a certain way, it can also be seen as like a cool symbol, and so it's taken away from us, our own identity, as for someone else's enjoyment. And so, I asked directly, do you feel like you can contribute positively to this event? And it kind of puts the responsibility on people to say yes. And if you say yes and then you don't, then I find it easier to be like, what are you doing here and why are you not contributing positively? Why you're taking this for yourself, And that was one of the strategies that I found. Like the problem is that I find it hard to make people feel responsible because they're just coming and they think it's silly. But by making all these kind of hoops that they have to jump through to get to the prison, like there's a Facebook group, and then there's a link to a Google form, and then if I don't know who you are, I'll send you an email being like, who are you? And if a friend wants to bring a new person that never came to the party, then that friend becomes responsible for that person. So if that person comes and does something, then both of them have to talk to me about what happened. That's a lot. I have to keep a track of who's who all the time. But because it's 150 people and on a smaller scale, I think it's much easier, because at some point, everyone already knows each other after a few parties, And so I walk around the room and it's like, I kind of have an idea of who is who. And yeah, and I think that really helps. Basically, nothing really bad ever happened, to be honest, that I know of, at least. Of course, people then also have to feel free to communicate, which we try to do to make them feel as comfortable as possible. This is also one of the problems, is that I think there was, during Corona, during the Black Lives Matter resurgence, there was some discoveries that maybe some not so black-friendly behavior happened at the party. And I was a bit disappointed to find out that the people involved in it didn't feel comfortable to talk to me about it. And then I asked them if they wanted to. They said no. So this is also like something that I really struggle with, is like, I was like, I'm here for you. Like all I can do is like be there for you. I can try to educate people as much as possible, but in the end, people are ignorant, and they might, even inside our own party, act ignorant. So this I find very challenging because then I also understand that they don't want to talk about it, because maybe this happens all the time. And so for them, it's like, they might not feel like it's worth the fight, And I can only respect, basically. And yeah, I think besides that, I think I wouldn't really know how to make a safer party with more people than 150. I find it already quite challenging. I don't know if with the open door policy, what that really looks like. As I said, at the door, talking, saying, this is what's happening, this is the vibe, this is what you can do to protect yourself. Like, we can't do more than be there with you when something happens. We can't prevent it. I think the problem of making a safer space is when you say, it's safe for you, you should feel comfortable, and then you do, but there's no people actually acting in the background to make you feel safe and cared for when something bad happens. That's even worse, I think, than just saying, we're just a party, come. Because you're telling people to come, to feel safe, to feel like this is a better space than other spaces, and then something happens and you don't really care. And this happens all the time in all the queer parties that I've been to, in Berlin, in Lisbon, because it becomes this token of like, if we say we're queer and anti-homophobia and transphobia and all the no, this huge list that they say, then they look cooler and they look like better, and like it's almost like a guideline on how to act right now, but completely disengaged from what it actually takes to have that happen. So, Berghain people see as this great thing, but there's no place in the world that I've been more harassed in but Berghain. It's the place where I go to get grabbed, to get touched without consent, even from the staff. But they also don't say they're a safe space. And I really respect them for that, because they're not saying you can come here and feel comfortable. They don't say anything. You walk in, you pay your 25 euros. That is a ridiculous amount for the entry right now. And I had a barista take my phone away and throw it in my face, basically. You know, I was harassed by the staff. So yeah, I think one of the challenges is really like learning how to make what you say become true, and how like what that really means. And I'm not the best at it, to be honest. I do the best I can, and my availability is 100% with the people to be there for them when it's needed. But I can't say that my party is a safe space. Not without I can't sleep on a good conscience saying like, this is where you come to feel really safe. Maybe safer than anywhere else. Yeah. So the people that come say, and they feel really good there. But it happened to other people, you know? So, and I think the harder thing is also like while you're organizing the party, that is, if you're queer and DIY, it's quite stressful. It requires a lot of work and a lot of awareness of what's happening. To then also have extra time and space to really hold a debate over something that happened that is delicate, you know, someone touched someone, but like, there's always two sides to the equation. I also don't think like just because I was touched, I'm immediately a victim. Like everything is really nuanced in how I see it. So you need to like kind of hold a conversation and like find a solution that is fair for both, and not just like, because a lot of parties just take people out and also aggressively while they're high, and we don't understand this person's reality or perspective. And so this is really hard to navigate. It's really, really complicated, and I don't think without any training or higher education about this topic that I can deliver a response that is sufficient. I do the best I can. But I also don't tell people that I'm experienced or like the best at it. I just say that this is a space where you should feel safer, but not safe. Yeah.
Thank you. I saw Celeste Lapida listening intently. Is there anything that you'd like to add to that? Anything you'd like to say?
I just agree with Elephant's issues right now. Prior to the pandemic, we were such a smaller party, so reports of harassment or stealing were rare. So now that we're much bigger, the space is prone to more danger. And it's hard for us to keep things small because we need the ticket sales. Kung wala tayong ticket sales, and all of us from Elephant consider the party as our work, and it's much harder for trans and queer people to find work, and having the party is such a necessity for us to survive. So it's such a hard thing to balance. Welcoming more people, we welcome more people, and then we see it's way more fun, and we're also welcoming a lot of young queer people. So we also understand na, oh, they get to express themselves, but they're also exposed to so much more danger and the possibilities of being in danger. So ayun, that's why I was very listening intently, because mahirap siya. I think right now, until it becomes a cultural thing, until it becomes a universal thing for us to care for one another, for us to for that long list of no to homophobia, etc. Until it becomes universal, I think we're quite clueless as to how to make a safe space happen. And totally true.
Can I add something actually?
All right.
This is a great point about the financial stability of a party. The parties that I do, I stopped doing them because to make it 150 people, it's just not possible for me to like actually pay myself. I've never ever paid myself from it. And I'm at the point in my life right now that I just can't really afford to not work during like, because it takes me a whole week to prepare for this, and I make negative money. And I don't want to sacrifice the safety of people for, and this is not a critique to Elephant. I think parties should get bigger, parties should become sustainable, but I never wanted to sacrifice that one tiny place that was like maybe 2% safer than anywhere else to make it bigger. I think it's more worth it to have it whenever I can. And it's really hard on queer people that dedicate so much time and it takes so much passion to do this event. You really have to give a shit and like really care to do events like this, like and be really selfless. And it's draining work. I always cry after throwing an event, every single time, out of this void of just giving everything I have out. And I can't really afford it anymore to feel like that, because I have work to do the next day. You know, I don't have like 2 days off like anymore. And so it sucks for small parties to manage safe spaces by having the pressure of selling tickets and being sustainable and paying everyone fair, and having good sound systems and good lighting systems and everything that is necessary. So kudos to Elephant for trying your best like everyone else.
Let's move on to Mindanao. Rhadem, you've organized queer events in Mindanao. I'm sure it was difficult. How difficult was it?
I think it's more like, for me kasi, I'm the type of person wherein if I think this is right and I want to do it now, I'll do it now. But the struggle is always with the people that I work with. Because I also need to consider their safety and their welfare as well, and of course them getting paid properly. So I usually do the help in fundraising and help in making sure that the safety and peace protocol in the venue. So we did the Mindanao Pride. So I co-founded Mindanao Pride with some of my esteemed colleagues, and of course it was a challenge because the first Mindanao Pride and the second one was always bombarded by opposition coming from the fundamentalist Moro side. And of course we have, I think, I might be wrong on this, but that's how I see it. Here in the Philippines, we have this unconscious Islamophobia. We have a lot of judgment about Muslims. So they would always think like, oh, he reacted to a drag queen, we're gonna die. And there's always that kind of notion that makes, if you say that, then the other people who will hear it will have a ripple effect, and suddenly it will halt the entire operation. I was like, guys, they're just commenting about drag queens. Probably it's an opportunity to educate them. Probably it's an opportunity to engage them as well, and probably they would like it. Then sometimes there are certain events where a lot of my Christian colleagues will say, oh, we should not let these stereotype Muslim-looking people enter the venue because it might create chaos and whatsoever. And I think that's exclusion. I mean, these people, I think, hopefully, that's what I think, they are probably curious and they want to know. Probably they have biases against the LGBT, but how will we be able to address that unless we bring them to us and we make them feel that they are included in the movement? And I think that's what equality is all about, inclusion. But in our movement now in the Philippines, there's a lot of exclusion. Like for example, in the national equality movement, there's always people, advocates, human rights defenders, and some activists who would step back when it comes to the talk about the indigenous people, when it talks about the Moro Muslims, and talks about other marginalized sectors. And they would always say like, oh, let them have agency and speak for themselves. But the problem is that if we don't create safe spaces for them to be in, to feel free and to feel love and to feel that they are part of a certain community, that they will be protected, then this equality fight is, we're not, we're basically not even halfway to it. So I think it's always essential, like, yes, we need to secure safety. We need to secure that, but it should not prevent us from bringing people to get engaged and to experience who we are as a community. Because I think in Mindanao, we always have this fight of breaking the myths. And it's always a tiring fight because all the oppositions hasn't had experience the colorfulness of the LGBT community. They always see it from afar. But we never bring them with us. So I think that's the thing with safe spaces, inclusion. And when it comes to indigenous people and Moro Muslim, we should always speak for them to be able to free. Because there's a, culture of silence in Mindanao. If nobody will create that space wherein, like, in the media or wheresoever, like, hey, you are included, you're part of it, you're gonna be protected, then nobody will speak up. If nobody will speak up, and I cannot represent the Moro community alone. And I think it's also a little bit of danger when people always invite me to talk all the issues and problems of Moro people. Then just let me talk about it. And then after the event, it's like, okay, move on. So no more talk about the Bangsamoro issues when it comes to LGBT communities. And I think we need the pure solidarity in the equality movement. So I think that's the message of it. So far, Mindanao Pride has, temporarily laid low in the organizing the Pride event. But Davao, Cagayan de Oro, Municipality of Magsaysay, Dipolog, Pagadian, Isabela City, Zamboanga City, all the areas that we were able to engage with the local government, with the German embassy. All of them are now doing Pride events in their own ways, and their GAD, Gender Development offices, has been fueling funding, even if it's small or big. At least there's a certain safe space that happening in those locality.
Congratulations on your hard work sa Mindanao. Amazing.
Well, actually, some of the staff of Senator Robin are family friend, but I keep on trying to engage, like, hey, can I have a meeting with Senator Robin? But the problem is that the Guild of Imams and the religious leaders always visit his office and giving him advices all the time, so it prevents me to come in because they always say like, oh, Rhadem, no. Don't let him engage with you. So that's always the challenge, how to break that first wall for us to be able to really communicate what we need. Because I think Senator Robin as well understand the plight of the LGBT community. So he's a little bit torn between his faith and also at the same time his love for the community, because his sister is also a trans woman. And during his Action Star days, he's been supported by a lot of queer communities, and his entire career was supported by the LGBT community. And I think he still has that heart for them. It's just a matter of how we can reach out to him and be able to convince him that yes, we can, what you call it, meet halfway when it comes to your faith, and at the same time, what's right for your constituents and people that believe in you.
Thank you. Mayor Joy. Oh, Mayor Joy, this is the second year that Dama, diba, they organized Pride, and then every year, every February, Valentine's Day, this is the third year na you hold exchange of vows for LGBTQIA couples. Tama. So marami na kayo nung organized na spearhead na events para sa community. What are your personal learnings in organizing these events for the community, and how do you make it more exciting, better, and more meaningful for the community each year, every time you do it?
Well, because nasa ordinance naman natin, that's why I keep stressing na although I commend everybody for their efforts to provide for the needs of the community, kailangan talaga natin ng legislation. Really, it's so important that the government is by your side, beside you, fighting for you, and is your kakampi. Mahirap talaga pag hindi, no? So in Quezon City, nasa ordinance talaga namin na kailangan magkaroon kami ng, that we should have many, many activities for the community, because the goal of the ordinance is inclusion and inclusivity. And the more you make it normal to have parties and events with the queer community as part of them, that they're not different from anybody else, then slowly there will be, like what Celeste said, coexistence. People will start accepting that, we should all live together, even if we're all different, no? And we should all embrace the diversity that is in our city, no? And so that's why the city government really budgets for these events, like the Pride March. While I was told by the Pride PH that they're targeting much more people next year, and the problem is our park is too small now because it really was filled to the rafters. So I was actually saying, Manila has the same SOGI equality ordinance as we do. Why don't you do it in Quirino Grandstand? No, where you can gather 1 million people there. And us mayors, we should be supporting one another because this is for the good of everyone, right? So, if you need me to join you to talk to Mayor Lacuna so that Mayor Lacuna will be open to hosting Pride next year, so that 1 million of you can be there, us, including allies, we should do it. No, that's what we should be doing. So in Quezon City, in my capacity as the mayor, then we try to do as many activities as we can. I even host a Christmas party for the community every Christmas. I host all their parties. If they have special events, I do that. We celebrate Human Rights Week or Day. We celebrate every single celebration na maisip ninyo, sineselebrate na namin sa Quezon City. Just so it's just masanay na yung mga taong bayan. People just get used to it, no? And then and it's not something that's different or unusual anymore. And I know it's hard. Celeste said it's hard. Ketia said it's hard. Rhadem said it's hard. And it's really hard. We have 3 million people. It's hard. After our Pride event, I got so many texts sending me Bible verses. I got so many, but then you just have to keep plowing on. For me, you just have to keep plowing on and going on. Just because you're doing the right thing and there are people that believe in you, and at the end of the day, you strongly believe that it's the right thing to do. And it's important also, I know that the community, they're always, sometimes nagagamit din yung community, diba? Like for example, I was told right after our gargantuan assembly, now we didn't expect to have 110,000, but there were 110,000, and all of a sudden, all the politicians started calling. We want to be part of Pride, invite us to Pride next year, Oh, but where were you? Where are you? Why are you not voting in Congress? In Congress, it's about voting, right? Why aren't you voting to pass the Social Equality Bill in Senate? Why don't you speak out? And then now, because there's this crowd, you're gonna come out. So I also want to tell the community, not all politicians are sincere. I'm sorry, but there are some that are really, and we try to also work with each other, kaming mga talagang allies, no? But itong exchange of vows, I wish I could really officiate a real wedding, to be honest. Hindi talaga pwede. Pero what I wanted sana was for the community to feel that I recognize their love, and it's genuine love, and it's important that this love is expressed freely to the entire community, and it's a valid type of love, And do you know that in the first year that we did this, there were no family members, just the couples that would come, and then we would have a ceremony. But last February, the nanay and the tatay and the lola and the entire family are there, and there were more relatives than there are in a heterosexual wedding, which I am allowed to officiate. No? So that makes me really happy that the family is starting to accept these that their children are queer, and they're supportive, and to be part of that kind of a ceremony. So I see changes. It's slow, but I see that there are differences already compared to before. I really do, and that it's baby steps. But the important thing is we don't give up. And then, like what we do with the barangays, it really has to reach the grassroots. It cannot just be at the level of the mayor. You really have to bring down the advocacy, and you really have to exert effort and be aggressive about it. So that's what we're going to be doing in the next couple of years, because we've already organized our council. To be honest, it was hard for us to organize our Pride Council because we have to have 4 in the ordinance. Civil society organizations. And within the Pride community itself, nag-aaway-away yung Pride community as to who should be the civil society organization that should be included in the Pride Council. That's why in the beginning it was a slow start, because the community itself was not really that organized. But they got organized, and eventually we have them. And same with the barangays. It was so hard to organize them at the barangays, but now they're organized. And I think that's already a win, and that's a victory. And we should also celebrate victories. I know that it was so grim when I was listening to you, and also to Celeste. But and as I understand it can be grim. But there are little victories as well that we have to celebrate.
I was asked about the problems.
Oh yeah, okay, yeah, sorry.
If you
Sorry.
ask about the good things,
The
I
good
have
things,
also
you
an
also have
hour
good
of
things. Yeah. So yeah, that's all I want to share. That we do these things because we want to do them, and it's part of our ordinance. So we are mandated by our ordinance. We hold ourselves accountable to that ordinance, that we have to be true to the ordinance that we passed. And that's why we have a budget. That's why even if the national government, unlike with women, may 5% sila, pakadaya, diba? But then with the LGBT, because nga you don't pass the social equality, there is no budget mandatory for propagating LGBTQI+, right? And that's the reason why a law is important, because the law will say, okay, local governments, you must mandate X percent of your budget for this purpose, but there's none for you, for this sector, for this community. But what we do is we go around the, and syempre, gender God is gender. So let's put in the LGBTQ plus budget in the gender budget. So kahit nababawasan na yung for the traditional women's projects, kasi we're medyo empowered naman na yung women ng Quezon City, we were able to use that budget. No? So it's important really, the legislation. That's why I guess to the community, 43 cities have passed the SOGI equality bill. Let's hope that they don't remain paper ordinances. If you live in one of these cities that have these ordinances, Manila has it, I think Makati, hold your mayors accountable because they passed them, they have to implement them. And they have to fund them. Okay. So,
Thank you so much, Mayor Joy. And I think with that, let's open the floor for any questions from the audience. Hi! This is Sai, everyone. Sai, what's your question?
Hi, I'm Sai. Hi, guys. Thank you so much for sharing your thoughts. And I think I've learned a lot about how you do things and what the existing sort of challenges are in your communities. But I sort of want to delve into a more aspirational and speculative mode of thinking for you guys, because I feel like that's the source of a lot of creativity and finding solutions. And this is the same, I want to pass on the same question to you, Shahani, which is that what are forms of intersectionality that you'd like to learn more about in creating safer spaces? Ketia, I was really struck by what you said about if a disabled person or an autistic person went into Elephant, they might not necessarily feel safe there. But that's a matter of intersectionality also, is because it's the recognition that systems of privilege and discrimination are overlapping between different social categorizations. So in a more, I guess, aspirational line of thinking, what forms of intersectionality would you like to learn more about in creating safer spaces for your communities?
Okay, go first.
One thing I want to say about what I said regarding autistic or wheelchair people, as I said, it is a goal. The intersectionality is also a goal. I don't think it can actually happen because, like, maybe it can, maybe easier than idea of safe, but I don't think one space can hold all the needs and answer all the needs of a very, very diversified crowd, like in between all kinds of disabilities, identities, and whatever. I think it's just really complicated, and I don't think one event should have all of that. And I think what we heard from different perspectives of different kinds of events that are being thrown is that, I really agree with this idea of inclusion, this idea that, like, we can't also shut out, and this is one intersectionality I really want to see, is not to keep the straight people, the religious people, the people that are afraid of us out of the party, but how do we include them and handle the collision of paradox? Because to them, to accept us is paradoxical to their own beliefs, to their own integral system that keeps them sane, that keeps them safe. This idea of belief system, their religion, is also something that keeps them healthy in their own reality. And so to challenge that is to challenge their own comfort, their own well-being on their day-to-day life. And there's a dissonance period where you're trying to hold paradox within yourself that is quite complicated, and not specifically lower class people that have to work all the time don't really have time to be anxious and be like accepting other people. They have to make money and pay bills. And so in saying that, I think different events can have different kinds of purposes. And I think bigger events can have the purpose of just having queer people enjoy stuff, even if it's not that safe, even if they still have to protect themselves, they still get to go out and they still get to hear music and have a good time and, connect, forget about their problems in a daily life. And then you can do very small events like I do, where it's more specific or more niche, and you can have a specific experience that requires maybe even more effort than other events to do, but then also allows people, because if you're in a room, and this happens to me sometimes, where there's no cis straight white people, and there's like mostly trans queer people that already have done the work, have thought about like identity beyond what has been given to them at the starting point of society, then we can talk about much deeper things, because we don't have to keep explaining to each other the things that most people don't understand. And this happens also at a party, where if everyone has a level of education about consent, about safety, about freedom, then the things you can do are also different and probably more fun because maybe you can get naked and no one was gonna do anything to you. You know, Berghain might have a lot of problems, but being naked there is really not a problem. And a lot of people like being naked at the club, so it's kind of cool to see people just being naked and being weird for like 24 hours, you know. And this is the kind of inclusion that I'm really interested in, about playfulness, about actual freedom where you can do whatever you want as long as you're not hurting anyone else. And no one is going to come up to you and give you their opinion or stop you from doing it. And they even make space for you to dance naked around the dance floor. Even if they don't want to see it, they might go somewhere else on the dance floor, but they let you be you. How to hold all these different things in one space, I have honestly no idea. I don't know how you, I'm not sure if we have to. I think we can create spaces with different purposes and achieve the goals within those spaces. And of course we can aim for as much inclusivity and intersectionality as possible, but like Kit Kat, my party in Portugal, doesn't really have black people. It has a lot of Brazilian people, but black people so far, we have failed to make them feel welcome. And in all the discussions and talks we have tried to have with them, no one really wanted to represent their own community and the problems that they saw. They saw the problems, as you said, that you don't want to speak for everyone. Most people don't. I also don't want to speak for all trans people. I'm quite privileged as a trans person, or I don't even identify myself as trans anymore because I have the privilege of being perceived as trans. So I perceive myself as non-binary and outside of gender because I don't get questioned every day. And so for me to speak on behalf of trans people feels very uncomfortable. And sorry, I'm getting a bit out of the way, but my point is that my parties didn't really succeed in making everyone feel comfortable. But on a nicer tone is that a lot of people feel really, really comfortable. And I've cried tears of joy many, many times at the party because I saw trans-on-trans sex on a dance floor for the first time at my own party, which was kind of like my dream when I started doing the party. The first goal was like, I wish people feel free to do whatever they want, even sex on the dance floor. And no one said anything, no one looked, the party kept going, and those people had or like a lot of trans men come to me during the party saying, it's the first time that I'm without a shirt. I never felt safe anywhere to do this. And that means a lot to me. It makes me cry like really deep inside because it's like, it's so beautiful to see true freedom, to someone being like, I did what I needed to do to feel okay with myself, but that means that I can't take my shirt off anywhere else. And at this party, they did that. So yeah.
Siguro, ikaw ba? You want to answer? Ako muna. Ah, sige. Siguro to, so, when we do Elephant, we always try to book the drag queens who don't get enough gigs. You know, we want to give everyone a platform as much as possible. But it's something na hindi namin nagagawa perfectly, not 100% of the time naiisip namin kaagad na, we should book this person because she needs to be platformed, or it's something that nakakaligtaan because sometimes we think na we have to book someone also who can bring in the crowd kasi we need money to pay for our artists. So Paul and I and the people behind the Elephant have been talking how to make it more inclusive, and hopefully it's a project that we're doing. So hopefully by the time that we do the next Elephants, we'd also be able to satisfy ourselves with this, yung need din namin kasi siya na magawa na we really want to platform everyone. I've been talking to a drag queen who is deaf mute, so I would also love to platform her, give her a chance to perform in Elephant. At the same time, if we platform her, we have to make it include. We also have to include other members from her community. So we want to put a deaf mute, a sign language guy as my door, part of the doorbell. So these are things that we want to think about as well when we do these things. Yun lang. Did I answer the question? No.
I don't know how to answer with that, but I think how I interpret that is that, okay, with more LGBT organization in Mindanao, we've been doing a lot of things in Mindanao. We provide humanitarian program for disaster relief. We provide paralegal services. We provide a lot of things, shelter for the abused member of the community. And now we are at this stage wherein we're engaging with the LGU, and we felt like probably it's time we also support something that is not just the LGBT community. Probably it's time to bring the LGBT community to help others. So the more LGBT now is going to embark in supporting the education of the Bajau children in Sulu. So we're supporting, I think we're supporting 20 teachers to do a job in teaching and integrating the Bajau children so they could adjust and integrate to the culture of a mainland education. So we think that is important because we want to show that the LGBT community is not just for the LGBT community, it's an LGBT community for everyone. Did I answer your question? I actually having a hard time interpreting. I was like, what does she mean?
Yeah, I have to answer that question also.
You can,
Sama box. So I agree with you, definitely. Dapat we should bring the LGBT community to do other things that we're doing. No? And in Quezon City, everyone's open to that. We're all open to that. I think what I personally now want to look at is the elderly. The LGBTQIA plus that are in the elderly sector. Because I feel na there's always this notion na pag LGBTQIA plus community, mga bata yan, or mga working class yan. Pero yung mga senior citizens, marami rin sa kanila, and they've been closeted all their life. So mami, matrauma na yan, they're traumatized, you know, they have probably some mental, I don't know, struggles, mental struggles. I don't know, I'm just trying to see, because I'm also a student here. I really just got into this work starting when I entered government, and I just believed so much in inclusivity. And I had summits for what I believe were marginalized sectors. I had summits for the PWDs, this summits for, sino pa ba yung kasama? Teenage mothers, you know, so all of these that we felt like the government had to pay more attention to, and it just so happened that we heard some stories from the LGBTQI plus sector. So I had a summit, and I heard all these stories, and I said, why aren't we doing anything for them? And that's the beginning of why we passed this SOGI Equality Bill. So it's really because we wanted to listen to people. And now it has been brought to my attention that the elderly need our interventions. And so we are now working with an LGBTQIA plus organization that are focusing on the LGBT or elderly and their needs. So that's where we are at.
Thank you, Mayor Joy. Paul, you have a question?
Hello. First of all, I was told that we need to wrap up. but this could be a very brief answer. So I'm Paul. I'm one of the organizers at Elephant. I have a question for Mayor Joy. So as an organizer, so I was fortunately able to attend a discussion in London with Carlo, one of the organizers at Elephant as well, and we were all inspired by the talks about safer spaces, which is also about the disability for the queer people and the entire and everyone else. And so since Ketia brought it up, and our problem is Elephant is totally independent, and we mostly don't have funding. So is there any possibility or any process that we could do as an organizer, not just us, but also like all other queer organizers, to somehow ask for funding from the government itself so that we can also implement what we can implement for our community that we think is best, you know?
I don't know about other local government units, but in Quezon City, since we have the Quezon City People's Council, and we see civil society as our partners, and that's why we're really strong on public-private partnership, because we really feel in government that we cannot do so many things that should be done, and all that talent is in the private sector. So the People's Council now works like this. If you are registered in Quezon City, for example, and I do know that the LGBT Chamber is registered in Quezon City, tama ba? Yeah, if you're registered in Quezon City, then you can come and ask the city government for accreditation, meaning you want to be a part of you know, the private sector that works hand in hand with government, that engages with government. That's the meaning of that. No? So if you meet certain criteria, meaning you've been existing for X number of years, we see that you really are concerned about the sector that you say you belong to or that you represent, then you can be part of the People's Council. And then when you're part of the council, you can actually request for funding for certain activities that will bring forward the agenda of governance of the city that we cannot do, but that you can do. So yes, we can, and then we enter into a memorandum of agreement, and then we just download funds to your account. Basically, that's how that works, and you just have to be accountable for that money. because you have to liquidate and all the government accounting processes apply to you. But then, yes, the city is very open to working for with the private sector, because that is the model I like to adopt in Quezon City, because I feel that we will be far more progressive if we are an engaged community where everybody works hand in hand towards collective objectives. No? So yes, so where are you registered, your organization?
Makati.
Oh my, so
Shahani is from Quezon City.
you're from
all my
Quezon City. Oo, what happens ba pag ganyan? They're registered in Makati. Mag-register rin kayo. You have another group, yeah.
Yeah, we throw our parties all the time in Quezon City.
Or idaan nyo kay chamber, if you're friends with the chamber.
Hello, Chamber.
Or with, there are many,
Friends now.
yeah, okay, there are many LGBTQIA plus organizations that are already registered in Quezon City. So you can actually partner with them, and then the ones that are already accredited. So I hope you get along, ha? Huwag kayong mag-away, because I know marami na nag-aaway. But don't fight, just work with them, and then if you're partnered and you agree on the activities or programs that you want to carry out, then we can partner with you, and let's just then we will download funds to you, no problem. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Mayor Joy. Would you like to add anything, Nan? Okay, so let's wrap this up. Before we go, let's call in for her closing remarks. Please give it up for Ambassador Anka.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. And first and foremost, of course, happy Pride. Happy Pride. Happy Pride. It was a great Happy Pride weekend in Quezon City, Pride March and a Pride party. And I would, of course, like to congratulate Mayor Joy for this very successful event with more than 100,000 people being part of it. But not only being part of the party, not only congratulations to this Pride event, but to all the measures and programs you have taken, you are taking, and a few of them you have just explained and described. And I think this is really shows us that the largest or the biggest city in the Philippines is the driver and the engine of change, and will hopefully give also lead to more change in many other places here in the Philippines. So congratulations for this. I think the event that we attended and that we saw in Quezon City on Saturday was a very powerful demonstration and a strong and clear statement for respect and for embracing diversity, which really is an enrichment of our societies. Today's event is about a safe space, and we discussed a lot about safe spaces, which hopefully, at least this is what I took from the discussion and from the exchange, is that space is more than a room or a place, but it is about an environment, the environment we live in and we interact with each other. And a safe space, a safe environment can only be functioning and can only be working when we have equal rights and equal opportunities. And this also means not only rights, but also representation and resources, funding, as it has just been underlined. And it only works with mutual respect and trust and responsibility. Mutual responsibility and mutual trust. And I think what we are all aiming for, and this also the discussion has shown, is an environment where we do not see us and you, but us, the community, all of us being part of one society and one community. We also have discussed and have been presented the challenges that are still around when it comes to reaching or achieving the equal rights and the mutual respect. And I think one of the panelists came up with the term, it needs respectful, active efforts and inclusive approach to make things happen and to achieve what we are aiming for, namely equal rights, representation, and opportunities for everyone. And sad to say, but I think we are all aware that it's still a long way to go until we hopefully will achieve the SOGI Equality Bill. And what is very necessary for this is the commitment and the collaboration and the cooperation between the activists and the politicians. And I think we have seen a very strong cooperation this afternoon, and I congratulate all the participants on the panel and in the audience. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And that concludes this afternoon's panel discussion. Thank you so much, everyone, for coming to CELSAM. Again, thank you, Mayor Joy. Thank you, Rhadem. Thank you, Ms. Celeste, and thank you, Ketia. We'd also like to thank Manila Community Radio for helping us this afternoon. Elephant, CELSAM, and of course, the German Embassy. Happy Pride Month, everyone, and enjoy the rest of your afternoon. Alex? Thank you.
Manila Community Radio.